Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
The atoms in your left hand probably came from a different star than your right hand.
It is our basic human right to be forgotten.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Occultae Veritatis.
Hello, occultists, and welcome back to Occultae Veritatis. My name is Leon Filger. I'm bisexual, and my pronouns are he, him, along with
Sage Murray, and I am also bisexual, and my pronouns are she, her.
Hello, my name is Ood Gallifrey. My pronouns are he, him, and I think, from what I've read, I might be heteroromantic, which means that I pursue relationships with people who identify as women, but I'm actually having a date later tonight with a trans man, so I don't know. Possibilities may be opening. I'm in flux right now.
Nice.
And I'm Jess. Pronouns are she and her, and I am pansexual.
And Richard Bigley, heterosexual, cisgender, white male.
Boring.
On tonight's episode, we're going to talk all about sexual and gender diversity, but let's start off with a sexy drink. It's time for What's Your Poison?
So, what's your poison?
Oh, I got cider, that pineapple cider thing. I think it's pineapple. It said peanut something on it, so it's probably
I was pre-gaming.
pineapple.
Shitty beer. Shitty fridge beer.
Oh, I got some of that for
I know, I saw that.
poison.
And I was like, oh.
You're like, he's got a good idea. Let's get some shit beer.
Isn't English one of the only languages that calls it pineapple? Like the rest of the world's like ananas?
Ananas. Yeah.
Ananas is in French.
Oh boy. Yeah. We just got to be different.
Are these twist off?
No.
Oh.
Since this is my table, you guys can use the table to open it.
Oh my god. I'm really nervous.
Yay! I didn't break anything.
Would you be so kind?
Here, just pass it down.
Get off, you fuck.
Yes, berate the inanimate object. It will feel your rage. There you go. Hey, it worked. I can't. Alrighty. So today we are drinking Flatlander Prairie Mage. Oh, Prairie Made Hard Apple Cider.
Prairie Mage.
Boy, I've been playing too much
Lightning
Magic.
bolt, death.
Yes, Magic Missile at the Darkness.
It's delicious. Anything from...
Oh, it's tasty.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
Flatlander's always good.
That's dangerous.
This tastes kind of like Nest Creek.
Oh, yeah.
Which I had to leave early.
Oh, yeah, because your window.
Because your apartment was full of water.
Yeah, I thought my cat would escape, but she was just hiding under the bed scared. So.
You could have called Mr. Sage Murray and he would have gone and looked at your house.
I know. I have a problem.
Like, give me a spare key and I live like 4 seconds away from you.
I should. I'll give you a spare key.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you've trusted me, so I'm happy to trust you.
Sweet.
This tastes kind of like the Two-Town Cider House Pacific Pineapple Cider that I had in Bellingham, Washington about a year ago.
What were you doing in Bellingham?
I was hanging out with Dan West and...
You were with my parents in Washington.
And guess who wasn't?
I wasn't.
That's just too bad, isn't it?
Yeah. It's too bad.
You're out of the will, by the way. I was
probably having a lot less fun than you were.
Yeah, probably.
But this is delicious, cold, refreshing. Just came out of the cooler of the liquor store. So
Then into my fridge.
Okay, how do we rate it? Sage?
I will give it like an 8 out of 10. It's good. It's maybe a little sweet for me, but it's good. I'd buy it again.
I don't know, because of my second job, I've been sitting in hot cars a lot. And this is like the opposite of that. It's nice and refreshing and crisp, and it feels just right now. I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10, I think.
It tastes like summer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give it 17 trans-inclusive radical feminisms out of
No turfs in this fucking house.
19 social justice warriors.
No, and the turf episode is upcoming. I just have to greatly improve my research ability before I want to tackle that.
Okay, into the episode, shall we?
Yes.
What's the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation? Another common question is how gender identity impacts sexual orientation. Some people might wonder, if a person is transgender, does that also mean they're gay? To help us understand the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation, physicians who practice in this area remind us that gender identity and sexual orientation are independent characteristics that also typically develop at different times in a person's life.
The formation of gender identity can start very early. This can be one of the first real self-identifying factors that a child might feel.
But transgender children usually have the internal experience of other as transgender or gender non-conforming early in life.
People will tell you that they knew when they were 4 years old. I've heard as young as 18 months old, where they knew that they weren't, their gender didn't match their assigned sex at birth.
One of the factors driving the confusion between gender identity and sexual orientation is that in the English language, we often use a single word, sex, to refer to both gender and sexuality. Because of this, some people become confused and think that transgender children are somehow expressing their sexuality at an early age, when in fact, they're just telling us who they are in their hearts and in their minds.
Later on, as they start to grow older and grow into puberty, these feelings of attraction to other people might start to form.
The sexual attraction usually doesn't start for kids until maybe in the older elementary or middle school, where crushes may start and who they're attracted to. And at that point, the attraction piece may come in. But of course, they're much older when they really have the true sexual attraction and their expression of their attraction.
Many children are able to express their gender identity by 3 or 4 years of age, and this sense of self grows along with the child. Later in life, typically around adolescence, most people begin to experience feelings of attraction towards other human beings. These can be directed towards those of the same gender, the opposite gender, both or neither. This is the time when a person begins to understand their sexual orientation. So the term sexual orientation describes an individual's attraction to others in the world around them, something that's quite different from their sense of their own internal gender identity.
Sexual orientation can be just as fluid as gender identity, in that our attractions can be to male, female, somewhere in between, or both, sometimes neither. There's actually a just as big of a spectrum on this end as there is for gender identity.
Even though the spectrum model has been proposed for understanding both sexual orientation and gender identity, Western society has struggled to accept the concept of a continuum when it comes to these variables. We tend to like to categorize things. Maybe this is a way of trying to make sense of things we don't feel we completely understand. Yet many people would agree that knowing who you are and finding out who you're eventually going to love are both complicated and deeply personal characteristics. Some might say that it's exactly this complexity and diversity that makes our society more beautiful.
Okay, so this is a two-parter, and by two-parter, I mean it's not actually two separate episodes, but it's got two sections within.
Yeah.
So the first one is going to be sexual orientation. So there are many of them, and we're going to talk about them now, and I would like Jess to introduce.
Sure. Sexual orientation or attraction is just like, I used to do presentations in schools, and what the teenagers tell me, it's who you want to smash.
Yep.
Or what you say to the younger kids, who you want to smush or who you want to smooch. But sexual orientation is just like who you're naturally attracted to. And there's all different ways of being attracted to people. I like to think of it more as like magnets. Some magnets are Yep, together, and other magnets are not into it. But yeah, there's so many different types of sexual orientations out there. For example, I myself am pansexual. I didn't know that existed until I went to university. But do you want me to go through like a bunch of lists?
Please do.
Sure. Okay. So heterosexual, or like hopelessly het, that is when you're attracted to someone of a different gender than you, also known as straight. Gay is now more gender inclusive. It's more neutral. So it is when you're attracted to someone of the same gender as you. But it's also an umbrella term for the queer community or LGBTQ2S community.
So would then some bisexual people identify as gay?
If you wanna. Yeah. The really beautiful thing about language is it's dynamic and it's not stagnant. It's constantly evolving, and people get to decide what words they use for themselves. And so, I'm giving you some definitions, but people might have a different understanding of it and may claim different words for themselves that another person might not. Can
I jump in with a question?
Yeah, go.
Okay. Why would someone use the term pansexual or bisexual? Which I realize, like, I identify as bisexual, but I'm probably pansexual.
I think they're kind of the same.
But I don't use the word pansexual because it confuses old people.
Yep, it does. Well, again, it's personal preference for what you want to use. Pansexual is a term that's been around for a little while, but has only really gained that popularity, I guess, in the last, I would say, like a decade or so. But yeah, pan in Latin means all. And so in the past, when we only acknowledged that there were two genders, even though there's more, surprise. In the past, when we only acknowledged that there were two genders, being bisexual, bi in Latin means two. And so a bisexual person was attracted to men and women. But when our understanding of gender expanded, or has been expanding, the idea that, somebody who is attracted to people regardless of their gender identity or what biology they have, that's what it means to be pan. And so when I was growing up, I only knew that there was gay, straight, and bi. That was it.
One more than I had.
And so, I was very interested when I went to university and heard this word pansexual. And I was like, what does that even mean? And it's just, you don't care. It's about hearts, not parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of how I feel too, even though I do identify as bisexual. Like,
Do you want to tell your story?
Which one?
About how you figured out you were bi, when, where, why, what, and who.
Oh, okay. Well, I've always kind of felt attracted to like everyone, regardless of gender. Like, I've been attracted to men, women, non-binary folks, everyone, and like I'm in a very like straight presenting relationship.
Yep,
because I have a big burly bearded husband and an adorable son. But like, I mean, I've had sexual experiences with women. I have not had sexual experiences with non-binary folks, but still I'm thirsty about that.
Yes.
But I don't know, like I've only recently kind of come out as bi, which maybe I'm pan, but I don't know, the bi flag is prettier, I think.
It's true. It is pretty.
Yeah. So I might just stick with that. But yeah, I like Mr. Sage Murray is like, no shit. When I was like, yeah, I'm totally bi. He's like, no shit. You always put women on your the
exception list.
Yeah, on my exception list. I have so many women on my exception list.
Amazing.
So yeah, it's been like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that I came out to my father on the podcast.
Fantastic.
Oh boy.
And I don't know. No one's like, I don't know. I don't think anyone really gives a shit.
No, I don't give it. I mean, I love you, but I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not super exciting, but I don't know. Like I used to, when I was in high school, we used to use like, oh, that's so gay, and I'm totally 100% guilty of doing that.
Me too.
Yep. So gay equaled stupid and bad and like not good. So I stayed in the closet for a while and never really came out until I was like 30, and I'm 32 now.
Yeah.
I knew something like I went to Catholic school for the first 9 years of my schooling, and we were told that there were two sexual, they didn't even call them orientations. What was the old dated word they used for it?
Deviances?
No, not deviant. It wasn't sexual orientation. It was, sexual preference. I think it was.
Preference.
so there were two of them. There was straight, which was very, very good, and there was gay, which was very, very bad. And you had to be one or the other. And I remember being in grade 4 and being so confused because we had this, it was essentially a rape game, what it was, where it was called Catch the Girls and Kiss Them.
Oh yeah, we always played that game.
Oh.
It's
Super consensual.
It's sexual assault. We had a sexual assault game in Catholic school.
Yep.
Surprise.
And I remember catching girls and sexually assaulting them in grade 4.
Yep.
But then I was jealous because there were a few like the really butch girls in grade 4, as much as you can be a butch girl in grade 4, who would catch the boys and kiss them. And I thought, that's interesting. That looks like a lot of fun. And then I wanted to catch the boys and kiss them. But I knew that was like very, very, very bad. So I totally suppressed it. And then I had a huge crisis in grade 9 because, again, coming out of grade 8 in Catholic school, I only knew about 2 sexual orientations or preferences as they were. And I knew I was straight one day, and then I knew I was gay the next day, and I just had no idea what the fuck was going on.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until grade 11 that the term bisexual was posed to me, and I sort of asked what it was about, and they said, well, you can be attracted to both at the same time. What? Well, I can? This is incredible. And I still went through the crisis. I thought I was gay for a while, and then thought I was straight for a while, and eventually settled on bisexual. And then I've always gone to the Pride Parade. I've been going to the Pride Parade for a decade before this, and always there as an ally, and I have my big pink ally pin, and I'm like, yeah, I'm such a fucking good ally. And then 5 years ago, I went to Pride, and I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. So the morning of the Pride Parade, I went out on Facebook, and I'm like, hey, by the way, I'm bi, so going to the Pride Parade to be with my people now. And I went to the Pride Parade, and it was like the first time in my life that, let me backstep. John Gormley had asked me a few years ago why Pride was still important. And he was, of course, suggesting that it wasn't.
Fuck him.
And I said, it works like this. I can stroll downtown 364 days of the year, holding wife with my same-sex partner, and no one is going to look at me like I'm weird. But those same 364 days, I can walk downtown with my same-sex partner holding hands, and everyone will look. Now, that's not to say they're looking with scorn. Many of them are looking with support, thinking, oh, that's nice. More of that. That's a good thing. But they're always going to look at you.
It's still to be noted.
It's still to be noted. Yeah. And the Pride Parade is the one place for 2 hours every year where you can hold hands with your same-sex partner and you are not alone.
Yeah.
And that for me is why Pride is so important. And I've attended every year with my opposite sex partner holding hands. And finally this year I wore my shirt with the bi Pride flag on it, and
I
had
need to get me one of those.
A bunch of people come up to me like, you're bi? I said, yeah. Yes, I am bi. I am bi right here. And it was incredibly liberating and empowering and wonderful. And now I'm so open about it.
Yeah, me too. I'm way more open about it.
Yeah, and it feels great. And my partner is very supportive of me and my exception list. Jim Sturgis.
Oh, yes.
Damn.
Yeah.
You guys have heard him gush about Jim Sturgis before.
I would not kick him out of bed.
Nope.
Across the Universe is a beautiful movie, too.
It is. So anyway, yeah, that's how I sorted that out. Jess, have you got a story?
Oh, yes. I mean, I grew up reading Archie comics, and I was really into them. And like, it wasn't for like the storyline, let's be real, or Archie. It was for Betty and Veronica. And I was, I was just like, yes, ladies, wear those pumps. And yeah, all those things. And then I also was super into watching Xena the Warrior Princess with my mom. And I was just like, oh my God, Lucy Lawless in a leather skirt. But because
I had the same feelings too.
Yeah,
actually.
right. Amen. Yeah. But I think, growing up in a really small community at the time, nobody talked about it. It wasn't like a thing. It wasn't a whisper on the wind, right? Nobody was talking about who they were into, but it was like really obvious that you should only be straight.
Right.
And so I remember being at parties in high school and guys being like, oh, I dare you to kiss that girl. And I'd be like, yep, I'm here for that.
Me too. I'd be like, yep, here we go.
Yep.
Darn, I got to kiss that girl.
Oh, shucks. Whoops. That lasted longer than, but yeah, so I kind of like kept that to myself. And then when I started university and I was exposed to like diversity and different ways of thinking and being, that's when I started getting a little bit more comfortable with like, well, I've always known I'm not straight, but like, what do I actually want to call myself? And that's when I came across pan. And I told my close friends, and I think I told my brother. I only have one sibling, but I kind of kept that under wraps. And then after the Pulse nightclub shooting,
which is the subject of another episode.
Oh yes,
yeah. I decided that because I've only ever been in relationships with men, which does not.
It doesn't make you any less pan.
Yeah. Have had sexual relationships with women.
Me too. I've never had a relationship with women, but I've done shit with women.
Yes. But amen. But yeah, I just was like, I have, while there is invisibility and that does hurt as a pan person, there is also heterosexual privilege, because I've always been in a relationship with a man. And I was just like, you know what? It's time for the world to know. And I think, I'm in a place in my life where I have enough people around me that would be supportive. Mm-hmm. So I publicly posted on Facebook. And then I realized, oh shit, my mom has Facebook. So I called her after work and was like, Mom, I just made this post. It's real. It's me. I'm pansexual. And this is what it means. And if you need articles, I'll send them to you. Okay, bye. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, please tell Dad. Okay, love you, bye. And so, yeah, my family has actually gotten a lot more supportive. This one time my uncle came up to me at a family gathering and was like, I just got a new work truck and the license plate on the back said LGB, and I thought you'd be really excited about that. I was like, thanks, uncle. That's so cute. Yeah. But I have definitely a lot of support in my life now. So it's a lot easier to be authentic, and working where I do, I'm gay for pay. So it's really, really lovely.
Yeah.
Tell us about your work and Out Saskatoon, what it's about.
Sure. Yeah. So when I first joined the Out team a little over 2 years ago, I was hired to be the educator in schools and also to coordinate Camp Firefly. And so I would get to go into classrooms from kindergarten all the way to grade 12.
Oh, it's awesome.
Across the whole province. Yeah. And so my favorite group to present to was like grade 2, grade 3, because they're hella smart. Mm-hmm. They're already accepting and they're open. Mm-hmm. And so teaching them that, there are more than two genders. It's okay to be gay. And then having kids be like, I have 2 dads. And then everyone cheering. It's like, the world will be fine.
And they don't have those vindictive cultural attitudes built into them yet.
Well, yeah. And they've had far less time being socialized that like it's wrong and bad. But I went up to a school up north in Cumberland House.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. And I was in this classroom, and this grade 8 student in front of everybody, the teacher in the middle of the presentation, just like looked at me in the face and was like, ugh, you're so disgusting. I hope you die.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's wild to me that, from a very early age, kids are taught hate, right?
Yeah.
And they're taught what's okay and what's acceptable, especially around like gender expression and what have you. And I feel like that's coming up later, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, it's wild that I would go into, I can't even count how many times after a presentation, a student would come up to me and say, oh, I understand who I am now. Mm-hmm. Or, you know what, I'm going to go home and come up to my family for the first time. Or, it was just like, it's like such a privilege to be able to talk to these kids and for them to see a queer person in front of them who's like, yeah, it's like not a big deal. Just be who you are. Mm-hmm. The world needs to figure its shit out. You keep doing you. There's no wrong way to be a human. And the positive of them just like coming up to you after and being like, thank you. I feel so validated. I feel seen. Mm-hmm. But those rural communities, some of them are doing some like really good stuff, and other ones are
not.
Yeah, they're really struggling.
And you have to wonder about like, trans, non-binary, even just cisgendered kids, like what they must be struggling with, having all that weight of expectation just put on them.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah, it's
So
wild.
what is Out Saskatoon?
Oh, right. So Out Saskatoon is Saskatoon's 2S LGBTQ organization. And so we offer tons of services. So we have different peer groups and support groups. We have, so for youth in elementary school, high school, we have a 55 plus group that are super lovely. We have a bear group, a bi-pan poly group, a gender rev group. We have a lot of stuff.
Yeah. There's a board game and STI testing night, which I've attended.
Yeah.
Which is good. Yeah.
Yeah. We also do free counseling. So all of our services are free. So we have free counseling, our sexual health clinic, our drop-in space. We have a queer library. We do lots of education and professional development. And we throw lots of events, especially during Pride. June is it's a fantastic time, but it's also a very tiring time.
I know it was impossible to book you in June.
Yep.
We had to wait till August.
Yeah.
That's the busy season.
So before we move on to gender identity, let's go through the acronym one letter at a time.
Sure.
Okay, so we start off with 2S. What is it?
Two-spirit.
Okay, and what does it mean?
Ooh, well, that's a gender identity. So do you want me to wait or do you want me to go for it?
Let's go for it.
Okay. So Two-Spirit is an Indigenous identity. And so before colonization and first contact, when everything got fucked up, Two-Spirit people were gender diverse people who were really honored and
depending on where they were.
Yes.
Some of them were not.
Okay. Yeah. So these Two-Spirit people, they were really central people in their communities. They were seen as really important people in regards to ceremony and had very important roles. And so they were more gender fluid. And depending on the nation you belong to, so Soto, Dene, Cree, they had different words for Two-Spirit. So Two-Spirit is a term that was coined in the 90s at a conference. So these Two-Spirit people, they had really important sacred roles and they were honored. And then when first contact happened, Europeans were like, oh, diversity and acceptance. We're not down with that. We're trying to recreate what we have back in Europe over here. And so in a lot of instances, Two-Spirit people were rounded up and killed. When they were sent to residential schools, these Two-Spirit children were forced to strip down naked so that their teachers could see what genitals they had. And they were forced to be either a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were left out of history books intentionally so that people wouldn't learn about them. And so transphobia and homophobia were introduced into these communities that where it didn't really exist before. So Two-Spirit, before pre-contact was more around gender diversity, but because language changes, Two-Spirit now just refers to a person who is First Nations, Métis, or Inuit, who is also LGBTQ2S. Including gender diverse.
Cool.
Yeah.
On to the L, lesbian.
Lesbian. Yeah. Lesbian, a lady loving a lady. But in some instances, a person might be non-binary and attracted to just women. And so, we don't want to gatekeep lesbian because we don't need to.
No.
G, gay.
Gay.
That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think we covered that earlier, but just attracted to someone of the same gender as you, or just, again, an umbrella term for anybody who's LGBTQ2S.
B, bisexual, which we've covered.
Yes.
LGBT2. No, we already did that. That's at the front. Okay.
Yeah.
The acronym switches up from time to time. It slowly drifts to the more progressive side.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for a very long time, we used the acronym LGBTQ2S, but we're actually in the process of switching to using 2S LGBTQ because, back in the day it was G and L. Gays and lesbians, and then B was added on, and then they went, we need to position our women at the front because they're experiencing a lot of discrimination and what have you. So it was LGB. Then they added on T for trans and gender diverse folks, Q for queer because queer is an umbrella term for all of the people who don't fit into the acronym, including like pansexual.
Yeah, I was a queer for a long time.
Yeah. And then, so we're in the process of shifting 2S to the front because, reconciliation is important, decolonization is important, and the original inhabitants of Treaty 6 lands were originally accepting. So let's list them first.
Cool.
So also an I as well for intersex.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I is just for intersex, like folks who maybe were born with both or there's so many different ways that you can be born. It's not just like XX and YX. Like there's like a zillion different variations. It's so much more complex.
Yeah, biology, like your biological sex is determined by your chromosomes. So like you just pointed out, and you can have a huge variety. Your hormones. So does your body produce more estrogen or testosterone or a combination of that? And then obviously your genitals or your secondary sex characteristics. And so
isn't like the range, like if your sex characteristic is this long, you're a boy, and if it's this long, you're a girl.
Yep. It's wild.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. And the amazing thing is intersex people have always existed. The unfortunate thing is that the medical field tries to create this binary that has never actually existed.
No, they assign you something. Be like, oh, it's a girl.
Yeah.
Don't worry, it'll pop back in.
Yeah. And they perform very unnecessary
and often non-consensual for the parents' surgeries too.
Yeah, to normalize the appearance. And the really crappy thing is like there's not the bodies of intersex people, there's nothing wrong with it, but we are obsessed with a binary of one or the other. And so
you gotta make it fit a mold.
Yeah. And intersex people make up about 2% of the population. So they're just as common as people who have natural red hair.
Yep.
Cool. So they're not this unicorn, you know, there's lots of them.
So I've seen tacked on the acronym, and this is controversial. It's a controversy, if you will.
Controversy. Don't ever say that again.
Controversy. Is the letter K on the end of the acronym.
For what?
Kink. And I think it's bullshit. I think it's bullshit because that's not a sexual orientation.
It's not.
It's a fetish. No, fuck you. And I had a debate with Jack Saddleback about this, and he agrees with me because
I agree.
it's fucking stupid.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
But the kink community is like, no, we're oppressed, and like,
I mean, as a card-carrying kinkster, no, it's not an orientation. It's an activity. It's a type of sexual preference. It's not an orientation.
It's like me slapping like MR on the end because I like model rocketry. Like it's kind of silly.
Yeah, and I feel like we live in a very sex-negative society, so I can understand why folks who are into kink or BDSM would like some representation, but I don't think it's a part of the acronym.
No, I think it cheapens the rest of the acronym.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about trans.
Yeah.
What can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you some things.
Okay, let's go.
So I am a cisgender woman. So cis or cisgender just refers to the fact that the gender I know myself to be, because gender is an internal sense of self. You can't see it. Cisgender just means the gender that I currently identify is the same as the one I was told when I was a baby. Yep. And so when I was born, they were like, it's a girl. And I've been chill with that label. For people who are trans or transgender, it just means the gender that they know themselves to be is different from the one that they were assigned at birth. It doesn't mean they were born in the wrong body. It doesn't mean they wish they were a different gender. It does not make them confused. Biology does not determine who you are, right? Because our biology and our bodies, they change a lot over our lives. So like, for example, if I were to go to the doctor and the doctor said, Jess, we ran some tests. So sorry, you have cancer in your uterus and your breasts. You have to have them removed. Would I stop being a woman?
No.
Exactly. And like nobody's denying that. So we need to just let go of this idea that biology determines gender and just say your body is your vessel. It's your meat bag that carries you around, and your gender is who you are, and that's in your brain. And who knows yourself the best?
You.
Is that a common struggle that trans people deal with? Like dealing with the whole like, oh, you're trans, so when's your surgery? Like that kind of assumption?
Yeah.
Because there's also this pressure on trans people to appear to be cisgender. To pass. But the thing is, somebody can come out as trans and be like, yeah. So for example, I'm a cis woman. If I were to come out as a trans man, I would have to literally change nothing about my appearance. If I wanted to rock lipstick and a jumpsuit and flowy, whatever, earrings, I could do that because there's no wrong way to express your gender. But our society kind of, again, puts you in a box of, oh, if you're wearing a dress, you're probably a woman. If you got facial hair, you're probably a man. But really, if I didn't pluck my mustache, I'd have facial hair. So.
Shit, yeah.
Okay,
gotta shave that shit in the shower.
Yep.
Remind me the name of the trans woman who's causing the kerfuffle in British Columbia about the waxing salons.
Oh crap! I've watched so many videos of. I can't remember her name.
Yeah,
But she was
Google that shit.
She was the one that was that came into a clinic that waxed.
I think she just
vaginas.
phoned them.
Yeah.
She's been phoning clinics, and the line will go something like, "I need a Brazilian wax." They'll say, "Okay, we can book you in." She'll say, "By the way, I have testicles and a penis." They'll say, "No, we're not doing it," and she'll say, "I'll see you in court." And she does this over and over and over again. And my thoughts on it are this. First of all, she doesn't speak for the trans community insofar as I know. I think most trans people are like, fuck no, you stay over there. Like you're ruining it for us, which I think is true. My opposition to her, and the reason I think she's...
Jessica Yaniv, yeah.
Yaniv. The reason I think she's full of shit is this. First of all, the waxing salons that she's targeting and harassing are staffed mainly by South Asian women from the Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, etc. So their English is not great. They come from very conservative backgrounds, and she's not targeting white-owned salons. She's targeting the East Asian salons. Number two, my suggestion is that they are not opposing waxing her based on her gender identity, but rather they're opposing to waxing testicles because they have no training in doing that.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, testicles are a bitch to deal with. I cannot imagine what goes into waxing them without tearing them open. I don't want to think about it, but I think it's their right to refuse genitalia.
Oh yeah,
not gender identity.
Every time I nair, it's a mini nightmare.
Exactly. So it's no different than a biological man going in who identifies as a man going in and saying wax my nuts, and them saying no, fuck you.
Yeah.
Same thing. They're opposing the testicles, not the gender.
Yeah. If she identified as a man and had a vagina, I'm sure they would have no problem waxing him. But she identifies as a woman and has a penis, and like a woman's penis, and like they just don't have the expertise or the equipment or the safety measures to handle that kind of genitals. Like,
no, it's a cock and ball problem.
Yeah,
basically.
Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Okay, do it.
Yeah.
Already.
So yeah. So my new role at Out, I am the gender-based violence education coordinator, and so my role is over the next 5 years, I am working with service providers or pre-service providers in the social or like for counselors, teachers, social workers, all those folks, so that they are better equipped to work with gender diverse folks. And so, we can't help the bodies that we have, and trans people, they experience the highest levels of discrimination and violence, particularly trans women of color. And so where are those people supposed to go to get a Brazilian?
Yeah.
That's fair. You would, I mean, and to play the God's advocate. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. To play not the devil's enemy, we'll say.
Sure.
My suggestion is, should there not, and I could be off base on this, should there not be a clinic run by trans people for trans people where like it's not a fucking issue? Like everyone knows about it. This is the trans waxing clinic. Everyone can go there. Everyone's accepted. No biggie.
I mean, that would be the first step to awesomeness. But I think moving forward, it would be really lovely if we didn't have to have specialized clinics for people.
Yeah,
I think
just everyone learned how to do everything.
Yeah, because like... Yeah.
So you're going to have to deal with everything.
Exactly. So I think that like the first step is like, have a place where trans people are working so that you know you are not going to experience violence at the hands of the people who are waxing a very vulnerable part of who you are.
Yeah.
But like eventually, I'd love to see that we don't have to have specialized groups for survivors or specialized only queer people serving queer people. I'd really love to get to a point where people are just comfortable with all of the information, even though it is constantly in flux, where, it's a conversation where it's like not a big deal.
And I think it's important to remember the optics surrounding this. I think a lot of people are attacking her because she's trans and not necessarily because of her actions. Her actions just become a convenient excuse to attack a trans person for many people, I think.
Right. And is there a better way of trying to, educate waxing salons without being like, cool, we're going to court? Yeah. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Do we have any comments, questions, queries, concerns, statements, or outbursts regarding sexual and gender diversity before we have a little Q&A?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay. I have a consent question.
Yeah.
And this is something that's bothered me for the longest time. And I honestly don't know the answer. And my opinion's been in flux for years.
Fair.
So the question's about consent and informed consent.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the issue. And I've talked to sexperts about this in the past, and it's been sort of a split opinion. So I want to get your take on this.
Sure.
So consent must be sober. I think that was more a statement than a question.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Is it possible then, and this is because I've done it many times while not sober, and it's been consensual.
Yes.
So it is, yes, it needs to be sober, but my question is, can two sober people agree, like, let's get drunk and then fuck? And then providing consent is revocable, can they still consent later on to sex when they're drunk? Because earlier when they were sober, they said, yeah, let's do it. With the knowledge that we can revoke this consent later on if we want to. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I would say, that is a very...
It's a tricky one.
Safer than sorry. Yeah. If you're having sex with a person you don't know well, sober sex, probably a good idea. Mm-hmm. But I know a lot of folks who will use cannabis as a way to heal sexual trauma and use that while they're engaging in sex. And so it's a way for them to experience their bodies differently, right? Or change their state of mind. And I think if you have a trusting partner and somebody that, you've had a conversation beforehand, laid out some boundaries, I think there's a way to have non-sober sex in a consensual way.
Hell yeah.
But in very specific situations.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's similar to the whole, like, some couples have an agreement that, like, if I'm asleep and you want to start to fool around, you have consent to do that. Like, you have to very much know your partner and very much know their limits. And even if they say yes, go for it, still be aware of any signs of them not
being into it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you got to be so careful. Like, even within a partner relationship, like, I've committed sexual assault twice in my life because I didn't get consent because I thought it was assumed.
Right.
Because it was with a regular partner and I was like, well, we fuck every day, so clearly this is okay. And it wasn't. And I only found out later that it wasn't. So I think, like, even within a relationship of close partners, it's still super important to have consent dialogue all the time, like around the dinner table earlier, and like when you're out in the car and like, hey, do you feel like doing this later? And when I did that last night, were you definitely okay with that? Would you do it again? If I do this to you tonight, how would that be for you?
Yeah.
And you can say no, right? Like, if you're not into it.
During, it's so hot when they're like, do you like that? Is this good?
Yes.
You're like, yes.
Yeah,
Or
it
you're
is.
like, let's try this.
It's a constant checking in,
a conversation
without being like, are you consenting to this thing?
Yeah.
You can use those words to make it sexy, but like make it into like part of play. Like, ooh, I'm going to touch you like that. Do you
like that?
Do you want me to do that? You know, you can make it fun.
Mm-hmm.
I like Mrs. Leon Filger and I have got our safe words, which I think are super sexy.
Yeah.
We have green light, yellow light, and red light.
Yeah, me too.
Yes. Yeah.
So like, do you like that? Oh, green light.
Yeah.
Green light, go for it.
Yeah.
Yellow light means like, I'm cool with what we're doing right now, but don't go any further. And red light is Kate.
Stop.
Handcuffs off. We're done.
Did you know I added purple?
Go on.
So somebody I play with, they love like intense types of play that can be, I guess, like high volume and high impact and stuff like that. And she discovered that she needed like moments of affection and intimacy just so she can continue. So she calls out purple. I break character. I'm not the mean dom anymore, and I just like give comfort for 30 seconds and like congratulate her and praise her, and then
just give her snuggles, and then you just snap back.
Yeah, and then snap back into it.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I'm adding that to my repertoire. That's a great idea.
That's a brilliant idea.
Purple.
Purple. I'm into it.
I need you to rub my pet my hair.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've been hitting you with a stick for 30 minutes. Can you cuddle me for a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, listeners, stay tuned, because one of my upcoming episodes is going to be specifically on trans, and I hope to have Jess back, and hopefully Jack will get him in the chair.
And Jack and Elise will I'll ask Elise.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can have a trans man and a trans woman.
Yeah.
Okay, let's fill it up.
That's what she said. That's what they said.
Yes.
We're trying to change it to that. That's what they said.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, you boomers on iTunes reviews that complain about our progressivism, we're going deeper into the left. So.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, it's only getting worse.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to do an episode on the Pulse nightclub shooting. And
that'll be a good
I've
one.
got a brother of a victim who's coming on the show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be pretty raw. Anyway, that's all I've got for Occultae Veritatis podcast. My name is Leon Filger, along with
Sage Murray,
Ood Gallifrey,
Jess,
and
Richard Bigley.
Good night.
Love you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so we've got an appendix to the episode. We had a question from the crowd. Go ahead.
Okay, so my question is, I have a friend that is a girl, and I'm also, I guess, a girl, and I just love her. I guess she's I could marry her right now, but I have no sexual attraction or desire or anything like that. So I'm wondering, like, what is there a category for the situation?
Absolutely.
Isn't it just so weird? Because, I didn't think that this is never happened to me before.
Mm-hmm.
So she was my roommate and we lived together. And one day we just kind of looked at each other and it's like, holy shit, like, could we get married? And I'm like, I will marry you right now, but my sexual desires are not with you. Like, could you let me satisfy that outside? And if yes, then I'm like in. So I'm like, and then I'm like, this is messing up with like, okay, help me.
Yeah. So we're often taught that like there's just one way to be attracted to people, and that's sexually, and that's all that is. But attraction is so much more nuanced. And so, sexual attraction, who you want to have sex with, right? Who you feel that sexual desire towards. Whereas romantic attraction, that's who you feel that emotional connection to. That's who you're like, wow, I want to walk hand in hand with you along the beach. I want to cuddle you. I want to have candlelight dinners with you. I want to have conversations into the wee hours of the morning and watch the sunrise
Or
together.
when I see you, I see myself.
Yeah.
Aww. That's fucking beautiful.
Yeah. And so we get very, very tied up in who you want to have sex with. But the thing is, there's lots of different ways that you can be attracted to people. And so, a sexual orientation that I didn't touch on earlier is asexual. And so an asexual person, A in Latin means non. I've had students once go, is asexual when you're a Canadian and sexual? And I was like, great guess. So an asexual person, they don't experience sexual attraction, or they experience very little sexual attraction to their partner or to others.
It's sexual, not romantic.
Yeah.
So it means that I can still like love them so much.
Romantically.
Yes.
But
So you might be
or like Demi.
Yeah.
Or Gray.
Yeah.
Grace, yeah.
Yeah. So you might be heterosexual, so straight, so you're sexually attracted to men.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all right. But you might be like lesbian romantic or gay romantic.
Because this is the other thing. For my life,
Yeah.
because, life on this world is so short, what's more important to me to have, because life is a trade-off. So I think that people that have that romantic connection and sexual connection together is like, holy shit, where are you? Like, I want to meet you.
Yeah.
And like, it's amazing. So what's more important for me to have that person where, like I completely see myself. I'm just like, like perfectly at bliss and peace when I'm next to her, just her presence and vice versa. Is that more important to me than having this? Because sexual, I mean, it's kind of like eating. You can eat, you cannot eat. Like it's like
get a vibrator.
Yes. I was thinking like, okay, what if I were to make that quote unquote sacrifice, and instead of like a male penis, I just kind of try to satisfy that in privately or whatever.
I think that's totally okay and probably the best idea.
Yeah, I think that sounds super reasonable.
But then it's like I also have like, I don't know, like why some men, I don't know.
We also put monogamy on a pedestal.
Yeah.
So why not both, right? You can have your partner, your person who you feel that strong, emotional, romantic connection to, and then satisfy your sexual desires elsewhere. There's like literally nothing wrong with that. How do you say why not both in Spanish? ¿Por qué no las dos?
Sure.
Why not both?
Well, and I mean, I think it's also important to on the topic of having multiple partners to, satisfy the various, different aspects of one's, desires, emotional, physical, intellectual, sexual, etc.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like cheating, comparatively speaking to polyamory and, that's the correct word, I assume, right? Yeah. Polyamory is much more normalized. Like it's like, oh yeah, well, you can have your wife and you have your girlfriend, then you have that sweetheart on the side, and then every now and again you go to that other part of the country or that other country, and you have somebody over there that you be with.
As long as your primary partner is cool with it, go hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But it's like, well, that's the same thing as being polyamorous, but it's like, well, he's cheating, and it's like, or maybe they're just poly, it's
exactly.
Maybe there's poly and it's totally cool, and like, thank you for going to that other person to get that need met.
Yeah, because the thing, one person for somebody may fulfill all their needs, whereas for another person they don't, and like that's okay. That's not a shortcome. That's not a
defect in the relationship.
Exactly. But yeah,
because the other thing that I've found myself in is like, I've had like, I've, gone out with a couple guys or whatever, but then I end up like going back to her for everything else. So it's like, so this means that the best case scenario for me will be to marry a heterosexual man, but still like, she's like she's my person, my first person for everything. And it's kind of conflicting. It's like, yeah, so thank you for answering.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
It's totally a thing. I think you should marry her and get a really good vibrator.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
That's my professional opinion.
If you listen to some previous episodes, I'm sure there's some pretty good suggestions for you as well on that.
Just get a little
front.
bullet.
Gracias, guys. Gracias.
I think it's also important to kind of, speak that, like it's all kind of a spectrum too, isn't it? It's like, you're not necessarily going to find that one romantic be all end all extreme, there's, various degrees. You could be romantically interested in various different people for various different reasons because they fulfill you in certain different ways.
Perfect.
Yeah. And you showing love for a person doesn't detract or take away from or devalue or invalidate your love for another person.
Yes.
Right? You can have it all.
Alrighty. Thank you for that, and thank you to Leon for throwing it together. Leon always has good episodes. It's gonna be strange without him, but he's accomplishing great things right now. So, to play us out, we don't have a regular palate cleanser, but I did collect a collage of voices of people giving their own perspectives on their own identity related to the episode. So I hope you enjoy that. See you in the after show.
Hi everyone, my name is Arthur and this is my sexuality. I'm a pansexual, polyamorous, cis male with both demisexual and asexual tendencies who has a dislike for most penetration. I am also fairly vanilla in terms of kink. I find that I tend towards the homosexual side of things, but I've been in a relationship with a vagina-having person for nearly a decade. Although I do tend to be asexual, I love frequently and openly. I've always had many loving, but just not sexual relationships. I'm generally out, except with my grandmother, who's old enough to not need to worry about such things. My father and my brother, however, both know, as do any of my friends that have taken an interest. While my sexuality is an integral part of who I am as a person, it is by no means the defining thing about me.
My personal gender expression is pretty neutral. I mean, there's the way that my body looks and the way that I sound, but I don't really have any desire to change that in any sort of long-lasting way. So just basic, I'm very aware of how people perceive me as, but I personally don't really see myself as really fitting either male nor female. I go by pretty much any pronoun. Most people are more comfortable using she or they, although a lot of people still don't really, they're not really comfortable with they, them, their. Although there definitely is generally more of a willingness to learn about it, and most people are actually pretty okay with it. I do like just kind of the freedom of just being very, again, neutral and natural in my appearance. Not really putting much effort into really looking butch or super femme, but just kind of existing just really as I am. So I guess you could say I sexually identify as a blob, and I'm totally okay with that.
So the way I would describe my gender identity would be a cisgendered female, just because I was born with a vagina, and I definitely identify more with the feminine sides of gender identity as we know it in society. There are days that, I feel more androgynous just because I don't wear a bra, I don't, dress super feminine, but I do definitely identify with those feminine standards where, I shave my armpits, I shave this, I shave that, I wax, I do other things for the sake of beauty and, very feminine hygiene and upkeep. This doesn't mean that I don't recognize that, the gender is a construct, that, the things that I upkeep that I consider feminine are, man-made ideas. I know that men can shave, men can wax, men can do the same kind of feminine upkeep. However, a lot of that stuff is viewed as feminine. I am definitely cisgendered because my genitals match the gender expression that is expected of me at birth, female sex being female gender. So I fit within the gender binary.
Hi, I am Sprout. I'm pansexual and polyamorous. I use she, her pronouns, but recently I've been questioning my gender identity, so I don't know.
Hi there, my name is Jax, and I'm from Connecticut in the United States. And I am non-binary. More specifically, I am gender fluid. What gender fluid means is that, depending on the day, I feel more masculine, more feminine, or more androgynous energy, and will change my presentation to match that. So, for me, that means that some days I'll go from wearing a full face of makeup and dresses to the next day wearing a binder and a button-up shirt and presenting in a totally different fashion. Now, gender fluid is, as I said, a subset of non-binary. So what that means is that each day I am still a non-binary individual falling outside of that male, female, man, woman dichotomy that we've created. I'm always outside of that, but certain days I will feel more connected to a certain energy than another.
You got some people, like me, whose gender is kind of a mishmash of genders put together. The term I've used is fembi, which is femme. It comes from femme and NB. NB comes from NB, like the letters NB, November Bravo, which is short for non-binary. That's just a little explanation in case it's needed. And fembi, for me, personally, at least, means half, well, not half, but like mostly non-binary, but also kind of a woman, if that makes sense. An analogy that I've used is if the gender binary is like, if guys are Coke and if ladies are Pepsi, I'm kind of like Pepsi Max with cherry. Kind of fitting in with the women, but also kind of not the same.
Alrighty, if you had trouble with our medically assisted death episode, you might not want to listen to this after show. I'm Wood Gallifrey, by the way. This is from Christopher. The subject line is medically assisted death. These episodes have hit me harder than I've ever thought possible. My father has a brain tumor that is fatal. Every time I visit him in hospice, he tells me he is ready to die. Everyone has said he isn't eligible for MAID, even though we went to one of the few states in the United States that have MAID, and he doesn't fit the narrow requirements. Originally, he told me he planned to overdose on his own medication, but he quickly lost that ability to plan or think clearly, and now he just cries and tells me how he is ready to die. I don't know what the solution to this is, but I'm grateful that there are people like you guys talking about it. Thank you. And really, that's the kind of situations that MAID wants to prevent. We don't want these tragic situations where people feel trapped and unable to enjoy life. Like, if we live in a free and prosperous world, if we live in a world where we have our own agency and our own choices and we own our own bodies as intended, then our choice to end our lives under circumstances should be helped along by medical law. Like, if MAID isn't available, then often you have to die by suicide. Like, that's some of the only solutions. And if your afflictment is severe enough and progresses to get worse, then soon your ability to do even that is taken away. But suicide is not a nice death. Like, if you don't have medically assisted death, where you can construct the way you die, you can have your friends and family around you, and you can do it in the setting you want, at the time you want, your choices, your way. If you're forced away from the medical system to take it into your own hands, then you have to do it in secret often, alone often, using riskier methods. That's not a good way to go. That's not a good way to end the story. That's why I support medically assisted death. I'm so sorry, Christopher, that your father is in this condition. I hope that your father somehow gets into that program. I don't... See, this is... I know you're venting, Christopher. Like, you're not looking for a solution. You just wanted to tell us that you're happy we're talking about it. But this is really the thing, because we don't want situations like this to continue. Alrighty. If you have any opinions on past episodes, just hit us up at ovfeedback@gmail.com. I hope that some of my inane rambling made sense there. On that note, we went over it in a few episodes, but I think it's good advice in general just to have a discussion with somebody close to you about what you want to happen to you after death, or if you're in an intermed state, or if your quality of life is low enough that you can't enjoy it anymore. Those discussions need to be had. If you're too sick to communicate anymore, then, or if you're dead, then nobody can get what you want out of you anymore. Anyways, have a wonderful night. Love you all. Have a wonderful Halloween.